Hey everybody, today we are going to turn this into this. So what I've got here is a Dana44 Knuckle off of an earlier Bronco, late 70s I think. And what this is a flat top knuckle. And you could tell why they call it that, because there's a big flat spot up on the top here. Now, there's a whole bunch of different Dana44 knuckles. Some of them cannot be used for this because they don't provide this big flat spot here. Some of them don't have enough depth. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different knuckles. I mean, even if you just look at a TJ knuckle, you can see there would be no way whatsoever, especially with brakes on it, that you'd get anything of the sort on there. So make sure, first of all, that you have the first knuckles, or the right knuckles when you're starting out, because that's going to make all the difference as to whether you can go about this or not. And if you don't have the right knuckles, there's a whole lot of different options for that. You can go to the junkyard and pull a set of knuckles. Reed makes knuckles for these. There's a whole lot of different options online. So if you're not going to buy something pre-made, a lot of the knuckles, especially the Reed ones, will come pre-flat topped with the holes in them for these studs, and you're good to go. But if you're going to do like I'm doing here and just take a normal knuckle and put a high steer arm on it, this is how you're going to go about it. So the first thing you're going to do, once you know you have a knuckle you can work with, is get your high steer arms. And these are just 3/4 inch thick generic high steer arms, and that's going to sit roughly somewhere in there. You can see how it hugs the ball joint, and it'll sit roughly in that spot. So you can tell that this does not sit flat. The reason for that is because despite being called a flat top knuckle, this is not really all that flat. There's a casting seam right here, and that is in our way. And I do not believe that this outer part here is necessarily flat with the inner part either. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab a flap disc. There we go. Nice brand new flap disc, sharp edge. And I'm just going to kind of smooth this area out until it's nice and flat. I want to get rid of that ridge. I want to make sure every area is flat with the rest of it. And while I'm doing that, I've got this piece that I can just put on here and make sure that it doesn't rock in any way. And if it does, I can use the rocking motion to figure out where my high points are. Now, it probably would be a lot easier to do this if I didn't have the ball joint already in here, but I don't want to go through the process of pushing that back out just to push it back in. I managed to do this one without damaging the ball joint, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing on here. You can see the spot that I machined around the edge there. I didn't need to go out here, so leave as much material on this part as I can because there's not enough or not much there to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and take a flap disc to this, and then we will look at it once it's flat. better than the first one I did. I'm guessing it has something to do with the fact that I kind of knew what I was doing this time, kind of knew the points to look for. So that really only took about maybe 2 minutes. Not really a whole lot of time involved in that. So now what I'm going to do, since I have a flat surface here that this doesn't rock on, it's nice and stable in all directions, so we are good to go there. So the next thing is I'm going to do is take that, set it up here, and clamp it in place, and then I'll be able to tap it around, tap it left or right or forward or back until I get it sitting exactly where I want. Now with this one, you can see that I didn't perfectly follow around the ball joint, and the reason I did that is because, while these are high steer arms, I'm not going to be using them per se like high steer arms. I'm going to use them like a double shear. So I wanted to get this as lined up as I could with this hole. Now this hole will have to be filled and re-drilled because it's oversized for my bolts anyway. So this will be at just a little bit of an angle between the two. But I wanted to get it as closely lined up as I could so that I didn't have a crazy angle coming out of that in any direction. If you put these on specifically the way they're supposed to, they end up coming out quite a bit off. And I believe they're supposed to go something like that, which is quite a few degrees off from the original hole for the steering, which makes perfect sense if you're using it as a high steer arm, but I am using it as double shear, so I kind of want them lined up. So I'm gonna go ahead and clamp that on, and then I can kind of tap it around, get it lined up, and then start making marks for where I want to drill. Alright, with this clamped down, I've kind of got it lined up similarly to the other one there, and I just kind of threw this one on the axle here so that I could compare easily here. So these came with a 1/2-inch hole pre-drilled in them, which was handy because I have this 1/2-inch leg, which is pretty much exactly the right length. And you can see that I am not dead on with that old hole, which is okay. That's what I expected, and that's why it's going to be at a little bit of an angle when I re-drill these holes. Not a huge deal, but having this allows me to see where I am in relation to this, which then I can compare on this knuckle. So I'm a little bit to the outside and back of the hole that's already there, and if I drop it in here, you can see that I am pretty much at the same place, just a little bit to the outside and back, and it's hard to tell, but that hole, the original hole, is right there. If this little pad wasn't there, I'd be right in the exact same spot. So what I'm going to do now is take my set, and I'm going to start with this center hole. Now what that does is that gives me the ability to get this positioned forward and back where I want it, and then I can make adjustments to that. I can swivel it a little bit backwards or left and right if I need to. So I'm going to go ahead and make a tap right here in the center. Can't see it on camera here, but there is a little dot there. I'll probably hit it a few more times just to make it a little bit more visible. And then I'm going to go through the different drill bit sizes here. I don't even know which sizes these are. I know that this last one is a 1/2-inch. This one was a 7/16, and then this is the one I started with, which I'm not sure what it is, but it is very sharp, and I've been using it to start. But what I've been doing is I will get the hole started, and then as soon as I get just a little bit, as soon as the metal shards start to build up, I'll wipe the shards clean, drop a little bit more cutting oil on there, and then repeat the process until I poke through the other side. And what that does is that helps keep everything lubricated and cool, and helps everything cut without dulling my bits. I've drilled 3 holes already with this and haven't had any issues. Doesn't seem to be slowing down or dulling, which is great. That's what I want. So I'm gonna mark this hole a little bit better, hit it a couple more times. I'll be able to remove this upper arm then we'll get to drilling. So with the first hole drilled, I've got a couple of these 1/2 inch bolts, and my hole is drilled a 1/2 inch. So what I did was I simply just ran this right through there into the hole, and just by nature of this being conical, it kind of self-centered. So I put my clamp back on there on the bolt, so it kind of holds everything centered on that hole like it would be if I was drilled and tapped and had the appropriate bolt in there. Now with that in place, I can kind of move this around just a little bit, not very much, mostly just left and right. I don't have a whole lot of forward and backwards play, which is great, because it's pretty much right where it needs to be. Looks like comparatively to the other one, I might be a little bit closer to the ball joint, but I don't really see any issues. I've still got plenty of room. So now I'm going to go ahead and mark this back one and do the same process. So I'll mark this one, and then I'll drill this out through the steps until I've got it there, and then once that one's in, I will do the same thing with another 1/2 inch bolt, run one through there, and then I'll have a really good idea of where this is going to be. If I need to make any tiny little adjustments, I might be able to, but then I can mark this front one as accurately as possible, because that one, you can tell, is kind of right on the edge there. It starts to slope down a little bit, so I may end up machining the top of this knuckle down a little bit more so I can get a little bit more surface area there, but we'll have to see how it works. This one is the same way, and overall it seems really good, but I may take it down a little bit more just so I have more surface area. We'll see. These aren't going to be used as independent arms. They are going to be used as double shear, so it's kind of sharing the weight load, but maybe. So I'm going to mark this one, and we'll run a bolt through and see where we're sitting for the front one. Well, I have the second one drilled, so I just want to make a couple quick notes before I mark and drill that third one. When you're drilling this, what I've found is that this upper surface is the hardest, so it takes a second to break through, but then once you break through, as long as you keep enough cutting oil on there and proper pressure and everything, it goes pretty smoothly. You just have to be patient. The other thing is you really want to be mindful of how straight you are with it this way as well as this way. So if you end up with 3 of them and they're all pointed off in different directions, it's going to be very difficult to get the arm to line up on there. And even if you do get the arm on there, those conical washers are not going to seat super well. They're going to be getting pulled one direction or the other. It's not going to sit really flat. So you want to make sure that you're very square against the surface when you're drilling. If you could find a way to get this in a drill press and do it that way, that would be awesome. I have a drill press. I just decided to take it slow and go this way rather than try to rig something up to get this to sit with this flat to my drill press. So with those 2 notes, I'm going to mark for my third one, drill for my third one, and then we'll get on to tapping so that we can run these studs in there, and that will hold our arm on. Okay, so with the holes all drilled, everything lines up pretty nicely here. This hole got a little bit this way, but I think I can work with it with the steps that are left. So the next step is getting it ready to put these studs in. So this is a 9/16 by 18 thread on here. So I got myself a 9/16 by 18 tap, and that tap calls for a 33/64 drill bit, which I do not have and could not locate, but I could find a 17/32, which is 34/64. So I am 1/64 heavy, which I believe will be okay, and 1/64 split per both sides of that is 1/128th of an inch less thread engagement on each side, which I believe that's acceptable. And we have a fair amount of depth, so there's a good amount of thread engagement. If this was really thin, I probably would spend a little bit more time trying to find the exact bit that it calls for. But that being said, the next step is to drill to this, which I'm going from 1/2 to 17/30 seconds, so it's really only a 30-second larger, so just kind of skinning the walls a little bit. And then once it's drilled out for that, then I can slowly start threading the tap through. Now, the same thing with the tap, I'm going to do a little bit at a time, make sure it stays clean, keep adding cutting fluid, just to keep everything moving slowly. I don't want to mess up those threads. And if I have any little bit of misalignment in these couple bolts here now is my time to attempt to straighten them out. Just if I little bit with this bit, and then make sure my threads are nice and straight in there. And then these should go in, followed by the high steer arm itself, followed by a conical washer and the nut for it. So we're gonna pop that off, open them up to 17/30 seconds, and then we'll start the cutting process.
Careful who you cross, careful who you test. Give me your worst and you'll get my best. 'Cause I don't know how to back down, how to back down. No, I don't know how to back down, how to back down. Careful, I'm a lion, don't test my pride. Standing like a mountain, looking the devil right in his eyes. Know how to back down, how to back down. No, I don't know how to back down, how to back down. No, I don't know how to back down, how to back down. No, I don't know how to back down, how to back down. I am a fighter. I am a fighter. I am a fighter. I am a fighter. Fighter. Got no limits, I got no fears. Only got my blood, my sweat, and my tears.
And if I take a look here, looks like I actually got even a little bit closer than last time. I'm actually lined up in the center now. So this one went pretty well. Couple quick notes. When I was tightening these down, I started with the two outside ones and slowly worked them back and forth, and that kind of eliminated any difference between the two being centered, and then wherever the center one fell is just where it is. When these will get pulled, this knuckle is probably going to get sandblasted or at least cleaned up and painted. When these do go back in, they'll go in with some Loctite. Don't want them backing off. I'll probably put Loctite in the threaded part that goes into the knuckle, and then either put a jam nut, a secondary nut up here, or put Loctite on these as well. Other than that, I mean, it's a pretty straightforward process, not super difficult, just a little finicky, a little bit time consuming if you want it to be perfect. So don't plan on rushing this process. Make sure you have the right tools, make sure you have the right tap and cutting fluid. I cannot stress cutting fluid enough. The amount that helped with not only drilling but actually tapping the threads. I mean, there was a couple of times where I would do tapping of the threads and it was almost impossible to move it, and then I just add a little bit of cutting fluid, back it off a couple threads, and go back forward, and it would go right through like butter. So cutting fluid is going to be your friend big time on this one through the whole process. But other than that, fairly straightforward process, not super difficult. Again, you could buy reed knuckles. There's some other knuckles that are already pre-tapped. There's quite a few of them out there, but this wasn't super difficult, and for the probably have less than $100 into this between the bolt kit and the arms, so not a bad route to go if you're looking to save a little bit of money and do it yourself. So overall, kind of fun and not too hard. So appreciate you guys watching. Hopefully this helped some people out. Like, subscribe, all the normal stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one.